Another artist of the French Baroque period, and one of my favorites, is Georges de la Tour. He was famous for his use of light, and not just light, but like difficult light, candlelight, firelight, burning embers, and the way that he would capture the kind of breathing glow of the flame in the scene. It's just gorgeous. So to help understand that, here's your next work of art. This is Georges de la Tour's Adoration of the Shepherds. Now, Adoration of the Shepherds is a common title for the subject matter of the moment in Jesus' life after he is born, when the shepherds outside of the manger come into the shelter and worship over him. So that's what we're seeing here. They are adoring him. Adoration. The title, Adoration of the Shepherds, is a moment in Jesus' life. So these figures here are holy figures. And yet, what Georges de la Tour doesn't give us are halos. We don't have any kind of winged angels coming down, marking this momentous occasion. There's no visual obvious indicators of a miraculous moment in which the baby Jesus is here and being adored by them. Instead, what Georges de la Tour does is he presents the figures in this very quiet, very soft, very simple moment. And he invites or encourages you, the viewer, to travel through this pious, sacred moment. If we look at the way that he uses light, we see the brightest element is the baby Jesus, and he's swaddled in this white cloth. There is a single candle in this space that is illuminating the scene, and his father here on earth, Joseph, holds the candle, and he shields the candlelight. And then that candlelight seems to almost bounce off and glow out from baby Jesus, illuminating everybody's face. This candlelight is so bright that it's created these harsh outlines. Now, you have messed with candlelight before, I know. You've lit a candle and you've looked at it. Have you been disappointed by how much light or how little light comes from a single candle? Yeah. So when we look at this, that's not behaving like any normal basic candle. Instead, what we need to think about is the symbolism of the candle. What? The symbolism of the candle. Candles in art, in Western art, oftentimes a single lit candle is a symbol for God, that God is present, that he is in this space. So with the understanding that a single lit candle symbolizes God's presence, then the intense candlelight makes sense, right? And that candlelight bouncing off of Jesus, the Son of God, and then radiating outwards, illuminating the space, makes this very basic candle and this very, I guess it would be simple scene or moment, all of a sudden become very significant, very important. And Georges de la Tour does this with this quietness to the scene. Also, notice in his composition how he creates a halo around baby Jesus just by using the straw and the padding of the manger. We see his mother, the Virgin Mary, and she folds her arms in this pious prayer. We see the three shepherds as they contemplate and watch over baby Jesus. And then look at this adorable little lamb coming in to smell the newborn. Now this works on two different levels because, well, newborn babies, they smell sweet and everybody wants to get a sniff. This is a little baby lamb and he's curious and he's going to go up. But there's also a connection, a religious connection between a lamb and God. Lambs are often symbols of the sacrifice or the sacrificial lamb. And so here, the lamb isn't just some curious bystander who's come to sniff the cute baby, but he also then ties in the birth of Jesus with his eventual death as a sacrifice for humanity, the Lamb of God. Whoa, Georges de la Tour, it's intense. Yeah, I know, right? So in Georges de la Tour's work, The Adoration of the Shepherd, we are invited into what seems like a very innocuous space, and then moving around with that light, we come to this understanding of literally a holy moment. Now, I mentioned Georges de la Tour's talent with candlelight. Look at how he gives us the flame and how it burns brightly and really tall. We see the outstretch of that flame as it kind of dances around, and then look at around his fingers. Now, Georges de la Tour, he could have given us the candlelight, but he shields it with the hand of Joseph. He's doing this for two reasons. One, he wants to show off his ability to depict flames and the intensity of light and shadow as it would bounce around in between the fingertips, but also going back to the symbolism of the light as the symbol of God, he's shielding us from a complete view of the candle. He's not letting us understand the complete light. If we pull that back further, we can say that humans are unable to understand the workings of God, that things happen around and to us that are horrific and miraculous, and we are not privy to, we do not have the ability to understand why or how all the time. Now let me just show you, because I love his work so much, let me just show you a few more of his paintings to really appreciate his use of firelight. This is by Georges de la Tour. This is called Boy Blowing on a Firebrand. So again, I know you messed around with campfires, with burning logs, and with this kid, he's gently blowing into this burning log, and you can see how it's starting to heat up and glow hot and smoke up. And then what he's going to do is he's going to light this clay pipe. It's such a simple moment, just a kid blowing on a fire ember, but look at the glow, how it catches on his face, how it seems to breathe around this space. We get to reveal pieces of him and hide deep in shadow other elements of him, right? Here's another. This one by de la Tour is called The Newborn Child. And it's another religious painting without all of those obvious elements like halos. Instead, what we see is the single light of God being shielded here, and we have a young woman, an older woman, and a baby. We're supposed to recognize this as baby Jesus, the Virgin Mary, and her mother, Anne. And here we have this beautiful connection between a grandmother, a mother, and a grandchild. We also have the light of God that illuminates but is shielded from the viewer. And as I said before, he's just got this great talent for candlelight. This one here is called Joseph the Carpenter. Now, in the Bible, Jesus's father on earth is a carpenter named Joseph. And here, George de la Tour depicts the man at his craft. Now, he's dressed like a French carpenter, as in from the 1600s. It's meant to immediately help the viewer understand, oh, this man is doing carpentry. Oh, Joseph was a carpenter. And then we think, oh, Joseph? Then this must be Jesus. Now here we have a young boy, and he's holding up a single candle. Yep, the light of God. God is present. And then what is he doing, this little kid? He's holding the light for his dad, Joseph. How old do you think this kid is? Like 6, 7 years old? Yeah, around there. Now, I don't know if you have been around any 6 or 7-year-olds, but they can be really chatty, right? And they like constantly ask questions. And we see if this is supposed to be little baby Jesus or 7-year-old Jesus, his mouth is open, right? So we have to imagine the sound coming out. 7-year-olds, they're just constantly, what about this? What about this? I heard this. I said this. She said that. I said this. I want this. He said that. I want that. Did you see this? I was thinking we could do. And his dad is like, uh-huh. Yeah, okay. Okay. Hold up the candle, kid. Okay. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. What we have here is not to minimize the holy figures, but instead to make them more human and have a more intimate response with these holy figures, that we are getting a glimpse into their everyday lives and therefore have a better understanding and appreciation of them as us or us as them. And so George de la Tour gives us that beautiful hot light that illuminates the space. One more. I know. One more. Here it is. This is George de la Tour's Mary Magdalene with a Smoking Flame. Mary Magdalene, if you're not familiar, she is a figure in the Christian Bible. She is a close friend of Jesus. And here we see the young woman who is holding a skull on her lap. Oh my goodness. Okay, so that's like a human head. All right. And then there's some books. And then this big pot of oil. And the wick rests on top. And it's burning. And this flame is really smoky, really sooty, right? And she's just watching it. Contemplating or thinking. About what? What is she thinking about? Well, what about you? If you were to be standing or sitting with a literal human skull on your lap, looking at this flame, what do you think you'd be contemplating? Oftentimes, life is connected with spark or fire, right? When someone dies, their life, their spark was snuffed out, their flame was snuffed out, right? Often we hear of the spark of life or eternal flames being eternal life. And then on her lap, we have a skull, which, I mean, that's just dead, right? Like, you can't see somebody's skull unless they're dead. Done. Okay. So here, she's contemplating life and death. It's a really intense feeling that we're seeing captured in this very quiet moment. I love this painting, and you know what? You've probably seen this painting before. I know, you have. Okay, most likely you've seen it. Have you seen Little Mermaid? Yeah? Okay, so in the scene where Ariel is in her grotto with all of her stuff, this scene here, she's like, what's a fire? And what is it? What's the word? Burn! That's the painting! Ah! I know, right? Okay, go watch the movie and then come back and say that you were doing art history stuff.